The unexpected roommate. John stood frozen in the mansion's library, staring at the strange girl with silvery blue skin. She sat in his uncle's favorite chair, reading a book about Earth's history, as if this was perfectly normal. Her long white hair seemed to glow softly in the dark room. "What do you mean you were here first?" John asked, his voice shaking. "This is my uncle's house. Well, my house now." The alien girl closed her book and stood up. She was tall and moved with an unusual grace, like she was floating slightly above the floor. "Your Uncle Robert gave me permission to stay here 2 years ago, when my ship crashed in the forest behind the mansion. My name is Lyra." John ran his hands through his messy brown hair, trying to make sense of this. First, he had lost his job at the computer store. Then his mysterious uncle died and left him this huge old mansion. Now there was an alien girl living in his library. This was too much for one day. "Show me proof," John said, trying to sound brave. "Prove you knew my uncle." Lyra smiled and walked to the bookshelf. She pulled out a thick photo album and handed it to John. Inside were pictures of his Uncle Robert and Lyra working together in the mansion's workshop. They were building something that looked like a mix of earth tools and strange glowing devices. "Your uncle was helping me repair my ship," Lyra explained. "He was very kind and smart. He understood my technology better than any other human I've met." Her voice became sad. "I will miss him very much." John sat down heavily in a chair. The album shook in his hands as he looked through more photos. His uncle had always been secretive about his work, but this was beyond anything John had imagined. "Why didn't he ever tell me about you?" John asked. "To protect both of us," Lyra said. She walked to the window and pointed to a black van parked down the street. "There are people who have been watching this mansion. Your uncle said they were from something called government agencies. He was worried they would take me away to study me if they found out." John's stomach turned cold. He remembered the strange men in suits who had asked him questions at Uncle Robert's funeral. They seemed very interested in the mansion and Uncle's research. Suddenly, the mansion's lights flickered. A strange humming sound came from upstairs. "Oh no," Lyra said. "My emergency beacon is acting up again." She ran from the library with John following close behind. In one of the mansion's many bedrooms, a silver sphere the size of a basketball floated above a desk. It pulsed with bright blue light and made the whole room vibrate. "What is that thing?" John asked, covering his ears against the humming. "It's how my people will find me once it's fixed," Lyra explained. She touched the sphere with her long fingers. The humming stopped, and the light faded, but it's still broken. "Your uncle was helping me repair it before he—" She didn't finish the sentence. John watched as Lyra carefully adjusted something inside the sphere. His uncle had always taught him to help people in need. But was Lyra really a person? And could he trust her? As if reading his thoughts, Lyra turned to him. "I know this is a lot to take in. If you want me to leave, I will try to find somewhere else to go." Her large silver eyes looked sad and afraid. John thought about his empty apartment in the city, about his boring job that he'd just lost, about all the times Uncle Robert had helped him when he was in trouble. "You can stay," John said finally. "At least until we figure things out. Uncle Robert trusted you, so I guess I can try to trust you too." Lyra's face lit up with a smile that literally glowed. "Thank you. I promise I won't be any trouble. I can even help around the house with my abilities." "Abilities?" John asked nervously. Lyra floated a few feet off the ground. "I have a few useful skills," she said with a grin. Before John could respond, bright lights swept across the windows. The black van was driving past the mansion again, moving slowly. "We should be careful," Lyra said, dropping back to the floor. "Those men have been coming by more often since your uncle died. I think they know something is different about this mansion." John nodded, watching the van disappear into the night. What exactly had his uncle gotten him involved in? And what other secrets was this mansion hiding? He had a feeling this was just the beginning of a very strange adventure. Learning to live together. 3 days after discovering his alien housemate, John woke up to the smell of something burning. He rushed downstairs to find the kitchen filled with purple smoke. Lyra stood by the stove, wearing his uncle's old cooking apron, looking confused at a pan of what might have once been eggs. "I wanted to make you breakfast like humans do," she said, her silver eyes blinking rapidly. "But your earth eggs seem to react strangely to my cooking energy." She held up her glowing hand, which was emitting a faint purple light. John opened all the windows, trying not to laugh. "Maybe stick to using the stove normally, without alien powers." "But that takes so long," Lyra protested, floating up to help fan out the smoke. "On my planet, we cook food instantly with bioenergy." As the smoke cleared, John noticed something odd about the kitchen wall. Where the purple smoke had touched it, small flowers were growing right out of the wallpaper. They were unlike any flowers he'd seen before, with petals that changed color like tiny rainbows. Lyra, is this normal?" He pointed at the flowers. She landed gracefully and examined them. "Oh, your earth walls are more reactive to Lemurian energy than I expected. Don't worry, they're harmless." Actually, she touched one flower gently, and it started playing soft music like a tiny radio. "We need to set some house rules," John said, even as he found himself fascinated by the musical flowers. But before they could discuss it, his phone buzzed. Another text from those government agents, requesting to inspect the mansion. It was the third message this week. John showed it to Lyra. "They're getting more persistent," she said, her glow dimming slightly with worry. "Ever since they installed those new cameras in the trees across the street." "What cameras?" John hadn't noticed any. Lyra led him to the library window. Her eyes shifted color, becoming more crystalline. "My people can see different energy patterns. Look there and there." She pointed to spots in the distant trees. "They're using something similar to my people's technology, which shouldn't be possible." John felt a chill. "You think they've encountered your kind before?" "Maybe. But that makes it more dangerous. We should explore the mansion more thoroughly. Your uncle must have had security measures in place." They spent the next few hours searching the mansion's many rooms. John had never realized just how strange the house's layout was. Some corridors seemed longer on the inside than they should be. Other rooms had walls that didn't quite line up with their neighbors. In what should have been a normal closet, they found a door that opened into a massive workshop space that couldn't possibly fit inside the mansion's normal dimensions. "Space manipulation technology," Lyra exclaimed excitedly. "Your uncle must have learned it from someone like me." She seemed hesitant on those last words. The workshop was filled with half-finished projects. Strange machines hummed softly. Blueprints covered the walls, showing designs that mixed Earth technology with something far more advanced. And in the center stood a large device that looked like a telescope made of crystal and light. "This is Lemurian design," Lyra said, running her hands over the crystal telescope. "But modified. Your uncle was brilliant. He was building a scanner to detect others of my kind, to help me find a way home." John noticed a journal on a nearby desk. As he reached for it, a holographic message suddenly appeared above the desk. It was his Uncle Robert. "If you're seeing this," the hologram said, "it means I'm gone, and you found Lyra. John, my boy, there's so much I needed to tell you. About our family's true history, about why I chose you to inherit the mansion, about what's really watching us." The hologram flickered. "The people watching the mansion aren't just government agents. They're part of a group called." Static cut through the message. When it cleared, Uncle Robert looked more urgent. "Trust Lyra. She'll help you understand. And whatever you do, don't let them find the crystal in the basement. It's not just a power source. It's—" The hologram cut out completely. "Crystal? What crystal?" John asked. "Lyra, do you know what he's talking about?" But Lyra was staring at something behind him, her skin glowing brighter with alarm. John turned. The wall of the workshop was becoming transparent. Through it, they could see one of the black government vans pulling up to the mansion. Men in dark suits were getting out, carrying strange equipment that pulsed with familiar purple energy. "John," Lyra said quietly, "I haven't been completely honest about why I crashed on Earth, or what your uncle was protecting. Those men out there, they're not just looking for me. They're looking for something that could change both our worlds forever." She touched the crystal telescope, and it started to hum. "And I think they know it's here. The uncle's secret project." John and Lyra raced down the secret workshop's spiral staircase as the government agent's footsteps echoed above. The staircase seemed to stretch impossibly deep into the earth, its metal steps glowing with faint blue lines that pulsed in time with Lyra's nervous energy. "Quick, through here." Lyra grabbed John's hand and pulled him through what looked like a solid wall. It felt like walking through cool water for a moment. Then they were in a massive underground chamber that took John's breath away. The chamber was easily the size of a football field, its high ceiling covered in softly glowing crystals that looked like stars. But what really caught John's attention was what sat in the center, a half-built spaceship that combined sleek alien technology with his uncle's distinctive engineering style. This is my ship," Lyra whispered, her eyes wide. "But it's different. Your uncle wasn't just repairing it, he was making it better." Before they could explore further, Uncle Robert's voice echoed through the chamber. Another hologram appeared, this one life-sized, walking toward them with that familiar slight limp. "If you're seeing this message," the hologram said, "then things have gotten serious." Uncle Robert's image looked tired but determined. "I suppose I should start at the beginning. You see, John, our family has a secret that goes back 3 generations." The chamber's walls suddenly lit up with projected images, old photographs and documents. John saw his grandfather as a young man, standing next to what looked like a crashed spaceship in the 1940s. Next to him was an alien that looked similar to Lyra, but with darker blue skin. "Your grandfather wasn't just a war hero," Uncle Robert's hologram continued. "He was part of the first human Lumerian contact team. The government tried to weaponize the technology, but our family made a different choice. We became protectors instead, guardians of the secret that humanity wasn't alone." "That's why you crashed here," John said to Lyra, pieces falling into place. "You were looking for us specifically, for my uncle." Lyra nodded slowly. "My mother was the one who met your grandfather. She told me if I ever needed help on Earth, to find the Roberts family." Her voice caught. "But I never expected to find so much more." The hologram walked to the spaceship. "The crystal they're looking for isn't just a power source. It's a key to dimensional travel. You see, the Lumerians didn't just master space travel. They found ways to move between realities. But it had a cost." New images appeared, showing devastated alien worlds. Some humans discovered this truth in the 1960s. They've been trying to replicate the technology ever since, not understanding its true danger. The crystal in this mansion isn't just alien technology. It's a warning beacon placed here by the Lumerians to prevent dimensional collapse. Suddenly, the chamber shook. Dust fell from the ceiling as heavy footsteps moved above them. "They're searching the mansion," Lyra whispered. Her skin began to glow brighter with stress. The hologram flickered. "John, there's a USB drive hidden in the ship's control panel. It contains everything I learned about the crystal, the government program, and why they really killed your parents." John felt like he'd been punched in the gut. "What?" "Mom and Dad died in a car accident." "I'm so sorry I had to hide the truth," the hologram said sadly. "But you weren't ready. The accident was staged because they were getting too close to exposing the truth. The same people who did that are upstairs right now." More sounds from above. The agents were getting closer. "One last thing," Uncle Robert's hologram said urgently. "The ship isn't just a way home for Lyra. It's also a weapon, the only thing that can stop them if they try to use the crystal. But to power it," the hologram looked straight at John. Well, that's why it had to be you, nephew. You see, your grandfather's contact with the Lumerians changed his DNA. That change was passed down. You're part Lumerian, John. Just a fraction. But enough. The hologram smiled sadly. The ship's control crystal will only respond to someone with both human and Lumerian DNA. A hybrid. Someone who can bridge both worlds. Someone like you. Before John could process this revelation, red lights began flashing throughout the chamber. A computerized voice announced, "Warning. Dimensional anomaly detected. Crystal containment breach in progress." Lyra's eyes went wide with terror. They're trying to activate the crystal. Without proper containment, it could tear open the walls between dimensions. The chamber shook more violently. Strange shadows began moving across the walls, like ripples in reality itself. Through the ceiling, they could hear the sound of energy building up. "John," Lyra said, grabbing his shoulders and looking into his eyes. "Everything your uncle said is true. I can sense the Lumerian energy in you. It's weak, but it's there. You're the only one who can power up the ship's defenses. But using it, it could change you forever. The energy might activate your dormant Lumerian DNA. You might not stay fully human." Another explosion rocked the chamber. The shadows on the walls were getting darker, more solid. Strange whispers echoed from them. "Whatever you decide," Lyra said softly, "I'm with you. Your uncle protected me, and now I'll protect you. But we have to choose now." John looked at the ship, at his uncle's hologram, at the shadows threatening to tear reality apart. Then he looked at Lyra, who had become so much more than just an unexpected roommate. He took a deep breath and reached for the ship's control crystal. "Let's save the world," he said. "Both worlds." The crystal began to glow with blinding light as soon as his fingers touched it, and deep in his DNA, something ancient and alien began to wake up. Hunters close in. The moment John touched the control crystal, everything changed. Blue energy coursed through his veins like lightning, and he could suddenly see the world differently. The walls of reality themselves became visible to him. Thin membranes of existence that the government agents upstairs were dangerously close to tearing apart. "John, your eyes." Lyra gasped. "They're changing color." He caught his reflection in a metal panel. His normally brown eyes now swirled with the same silvery blue as Lyra's, and faint luminescent patterns were appearing under his skin like glowing tattoos. "We need to move fast," Lyra said, running to the ship's control panel. "The crystal upload will take a few minutes to complete. Once it finishes..." A massive explosion rocked the chamber. Part of the ceiling collapsed, and 3 figures in black tactical gear rappelled down into the space. They carried weapons that pulsed with stolen Lumerian technology. "Step away from the ship," ordered a cold voice John recognized. It was Agent Parker, the man who'd been questioning him about the mansion. "This is now a matter of national security." "You don't understand what you're doing," Lyra shouted, her skin glowing brighter with anger. "The dimensional crystal wasn't meant to be used this way. You're going to..." Another explosion cut her off, but this one came from above the agents. A section of the ceiling burst inward, and through it dropped 5 figures wearing flowing silver suits that seemed to bend light around them. Their faces were hidden behind masks that looked like flowing mercury. "Lumerian Elite Guard," Lyra whispered, a mix of relief and new worry in her voice. They must have detected the dimensional disturbance. The chamber erupted into chaos. The government agents opened fire with their hybrid weapons, but the Lumerian guards moved like liquid light, flowing around the attacks. Their own weapons fired beams that distorted space itself, creating localized time dilation fields that trapped the agents in bubbles of slowed time. But Agent Parker had somehow expected this. He pulled out a small black device and pressed a button. Suddenly, all the Lumerian technology in the room, including Lyra's powers, flickered and weakened. "Quantum dampening field," Parker grinned. "Courtesy of your uncle's research. We've learned a lot since the 1940s. John felt the energy from the control crystal dimming, but something was different. The hybrid DNA awakening inside him wasn't fully Lemurian. It was something new, something that could adapt. Acting on instinct, he pressed his hand against the ship's hull. The metal responded to his touch, rippling like water. Patterns of light spread from his fingers, and the ship's systems began powering up. "Impossible," Parker muttered. "The hybrid is interfacing with the ship directly." One of the Lemurian guards removed their mask, revealing a face similar to Lyra's, but marked with intricate glowing patterns. The prophecy, they said in a musical language that John could somehow now understand. The bridge between worlds takes form. But before anyone could react further, a new sound filled the chamber. A high-pitched whine that made reality itself vibrate. Above them, the dimensional crystal the agents had been tampering with was reaching critical mass. "They've destabilized it," Lyra cried. "The dimensional barriers are about to." The air itself tore open. Through the rent in space-time, John caught glimpses of other realities, worlds where history had taken different paths. He saw versions of the mansion where his uncle still lived, where his parents had never died, where humanity had embraced the Lemurians openly decades ago. Agent Parker raised his weapon at the tier, not retreating. "This is exactly what we wanted. Control over reality itself. Think of the possibilities." "You fool," the unmasked Lemurian guard said. "You've triggered a cascade. These tiers will spread across the globe unless." John suddenly knew what he had to do. The ship wasn't just a vessel or a weapon. It was a dimensional anchor point. His uncle had modified it to act as a stabilizer in exactly this type of crisis. But powering it would require more energy than even his hybrid DNA could safely channel. Lyra seemed to read his thoughts. She moved to his side and placed her hand over his on the ship's hull. "Together," she said. "Your uncle designed it for both of us. Human ingenuity and Lemurian energy in perfect balance." The other Lemurian guards recognized what they were attempting. They raised their weapons, creating a defensive perimeter around the ship. "You'll die if you try to channel that much energy," Parker warned, but there was fear in his voice now. Even a hybrid couldn't survive it. John looked at Lyra, then at the tears showing him all those other lives he could have lived. But none of them were his life. None of them had led him to this moment, to this choice, to her. "Sometimes the best future is the one you have to fight for," he said, remembering his uncle's words from long ago. He pressed his other hand against the ship's crystal core. Lyra's energy flowed into him, merging with his awakening powers. The ship responded, systems lighting up like a new dawn. Around them, reality itself held its breath. The truth about Uncle. The ship's crystal core pulsed with blinding light as John and Lyra channeled their combined energy into it. Their powers merged, creating something entirely new, a perfect fusion of human determination and Lemurian energy. The dimensional tiers around them began to stabilize, reality slowly knitting itself back together. But then John saw something in one of the remaining tiers that made his heart stop. Through the rift, he watched a scene from the past. His uncle Robert confronting Agent Parker in this very chamber, 3 months ago. "I won't let you weaponize this technology," Uncle Robert was saying, standing protectively in front of an earlier version of the ship. The dimensional crystal stays contained. "You old fool," Parker sneered in the memory. "Did you think we didn't know about your little experiments? Trying to create a stable human Lemurian hybrid, using your own nephew as a test subject every time he visited." John's concentration wavered. "What?" "The present day," Parker laughed. "Oh, didn't you know? All those summer visits, those special vitamins he gave you. Your uncle was preparing your DNA for years, making you compatible with Lemurian energy. He played you like a puppet." "He was protecting me," John growled, but doubt crept into his mind. More memories surfaced. Strange tasting orange juice every morning at the mansion. Uncle checking his blood pressure constantly. Those mysterious allergies that only acted up here. The unmasked Lemurian guard stepped forward. Your uncle made a choice, she said. Her voice was eerily familiar, just as I did when I left him. Lyra gasped. Mother. The guard's face softened. Yes, little one. I am Starweaver, and Robert Roberts was more than just your protector. He was my partner in the greatest scientific achievement of two worlds, the creation of natural human Lemurian hybridization. Through another dimensional tear, they all watched a scene from 25 years ago, a younger Starweaver and Uncle Robert working in the chamber, surrounded by holographic DNA models. The dimensional crystal isn't just a power source, Starweaver explained. It's a catalyst for controlled evolution. We discovered that human DNA could be gradually adapted to handle Lemurian energy, but it required years of careful preparation. The vitamins, John whispered. Your parents discovered the truth, Parker cut in. They found Robert's files, learned what he was doing to their son. They threatened to expose everything. We couldn't allow that. Rage boiled up inside John. The ship's crystal core responded to his anger, energy crackling outward. The dimensional tears rippled. Easy, Lyra whispered, squeezing his hand. Don't let him provoke you. The dimensional barriers are still fragile. Another memory played through a tear, Uncle Robert recording his final hologram message. But this time, they saw what happened after. Parker and his men stormed the chamber. Robert activated some kind of failsafe, releasing a burst of energy that merged with his body. Your uncle isn't dead, Starweaver revealed. He used the dimensional crystal's power to scatter his consciousness across multiple realities. Each hologram message contains a fragment of his actual being. As if on cue, all of Uncle Robert's holograms throughout the chamber flickered to life at once. But now, they'd moved independently, each one a different version of him from another reality. I'm sorry I had to deceive you, John, the holograms said in unison, but everything I did was to prepare you for this moment. You're not just a hybrid, you're the template for humanity's next step, a bridge between worlds. You see now why we need this technology, Parker asked. Imagine controlled human evolution, an army of hybrid soldiers, American superiority across multiple dimensions. That's not what this power is for, John said. He could feel the ship responding to him more strongly now, recognizing him as both pilot and key. It's about bringing worlds together, not conquering them. Suddenly, the chamber's sensors blared a warning. The dimensional crystal above was going critical again, but differently this time. The government's failed attempt to harness it had created a chain reaction. The crystal is collapsing in on itself, Starweaver announced. It's creating a dimensional singularity. If it fully forms, it will begin absorbing our reality. Through the tears, they could see it happening in other dimensions too. Versions of the crystal all collapsing simultaneously across multiple realities. John. All of Uncle Robert's holograms turned to him. The ship can stop this, but I designed it to require 3 specific energy signatures: human, Lemurian, and hybrid. A trinity of powers working in perfect harmony. John looked at Lyra, then at Starweaver. Understanding passed between them. Mom, Lyra said softly, all these years you were watching over me. Through every dimension, Starweaver replied. In every reality, I made sure you found your way here. To him, the chamber shook violently. The dimensional singularity was growing. Reality itself was starting to curve around it like water down a drain. Parker, John shouted over the chaos. Help us contain this, or there won't be any dimensions left to conquer. Agent Parker looked at his weapons, at the failing dimensional barriers, at the legacy of decades of government conspiracies crumbling around him. Then he looked at his hands, which were starting to dissolve as the singularity pulled at the very atoms of their reality. How? He asked finally. The ship's crystal core, all of Uncle Robert's holograms said. It needs to be linked to the dimensional crystal above, a feedback loop of stabilizing energy. But the power has to flow through living conduits. John understood. He reached out both hands, one to Lyra, one to Starweaver. "Mom," he said to Lyra, "Agent Parker, each of you needs to link with one of us. Complete the circuit. Human and Lemurian, past and future, all flowing together." As Parker and the remaining agents stepped forward, time seemed to slow. In that moment, through the dimensional tiers, John saw infinite possibilities branching out before them. And in every single one, he and Lyra were together, bridging the gap between worlds. Reality held its breath once again, waiting to see if they could heal the broken boundaries between dimensions. Final countdown. The dimensional singularity pulsed above them like a dark star, reality bending and twisting around its edges. John stood at the center of their makeshift circle. Himself, Lyra, Starweaver, Parker, and the remaining agents, all linking hands around the ship's crystal core. Uncle Robert's holograms flickered between them, their light growing stronger as fragments of his consciousness began pulling back together. "The feedback loop is starting," Starweaver announced, her silver skin glowing brilliantly. "Everyone, focus your energy through John." The power that surged through John was unlike anything he had ever felt. Human determination flowed from Parker and his agents, their fear and ambition transformed into raw will. Lemurian energy cascaded from Starweaver and Lyra, ancient and mysterious. And through John, these forces began to merge. But something was wrong. The singularity was fighting back. Through the remaining dimensional tiers, John could see other versions of this moment playing out across infinite realities. In some, they failed catastrophically. In others, they succeeded but at terrible cost. And in a few, something entirely unexpected happened. "It's not enough," Parker growled through clenched teeth. "The singularity is still growing." Suddenly, all of Uncle Robert's holograms spoke in unison. "John, do you remember the story I used to tell you? About the night your grandfather first met the Lemurians? The shooting star that wasn't a star," John gasped, the memory flooding back. He said it sang to him. Yes, the holograms moved closer together, their light intensifying. The Lemurians don't just use technology. They merge with it. Their ships, their crystals, everything. It's all connected through song. Lyra finished, her eyes wide. "Mother, the ancient harmonics." Starweaver nodded. "The dimensional crystal isn't just responding to energy. It's responding to frequency. We need to resonate with it." John looked at the ship's crystal core, then up at the singularity. He could feel both now, could sense the discordant frequencies tearing reality apart. And somewhere in his hybrid DNA, in the merge of human and Lemurian heritage, he knew what to do. He began to hum. The note was impossible, both subsonic and ultrasonic at once, a harmony that existed between dimensions. Lyra caught on first, adding her voice. Then Starweaver joined, their combined tones creating patterns in the air itself. "The frequency is stabilizing the quantum field," one of the agents shouted, checking his equipment. "But the amplitude isn't strong enough." Through a nearby tear, John saw another version of himself fail at this moment. But through a different tear, he saw success and understood what made the difference. "Everyone," he called out. "The song isn't just sound. It's everything we're feeling, everything we're fighting for. Parker, think about why you really joined the government program." Parker's face twisted with unexpected emotion. I wanted to protect people, to make sure we weren't helpless against threats from beyond our world." "Then let that drive you. Agents, focus on your real mission, not conquest, but connection, understanding." One by one, the agents added their voices to the harmony. Each brought their own truth, their own frequency. The ship's crystal core began to pulse in time with their song. Uncle Robert's holograms were drawing closer together, overlapping, becoming more solid. That's it. The harmonic resonance is creating a stable field. But we need one more element. Through the tears, John caught glimpses of his parents, not just their deaths, but their lives. The love they had for him, their determination to protect him. And in one reality, he saw something that broke his heart: his mother singing him to sleep with a lullaby. The same lullaby Uncle Robert used to hum while working in his lab. The same lullaby that was, John now realized, a simplified version of the Lemurian harmonic frequency. They knew, he whispered, Mom and Dad, they weren't trying to stop Uncle Robert's work. They were trying to help him, to find a safer way. As this truth resonated through him, John's voice changed. The hybrid DNA in his cells fully awakened, and his song became a bridge between worlds. The ship's crystal core blazed with light, sending a beam up into the singularity. Reality rippled. The dimensional tiers began to move, not closing but transforming. Instead of chaotic rips in spacetime, they became stable passages, windows between worlds. It's working, Starweaver exclaimed. The dimensional barriers are re-establishing themselves, but now with controlled connection points. The singularity above them started to shrink, its destructive power being channeled into maintaining these new stable passages between realities. The ship's systems hummed with power, acting as an anchor point for the entire multiversal network. But they weren't done yet. As the dimensional energies stabilized, something else began to happen. Uncle Robert's holograms were pulling together faster now, drawing energy from the resonance field. John, they called, their voices overlapping. There's something you need to see, something in every dimension. The tiers around them shifted, and in each one, they saw the same scene playing out across different realities. A massive fleet of Lemurian ships, waiting at the edge of Earth's solar system. But they weren't posed for invasion. They were waiting for an invitation. The hybridization program, Starweaver explained, her voice filled with wonder. It was never just about creating a bridge between our peoples. It was about proving it could be done. That humans were ready for the next step. Parker's hands trembled in the chain. All these years, we thought we were defending against an invasion, but they were waiting for us to prove we could handle the power responsibly, John finished. To show we could merge our sciences, our cultures, our very beings, without losing ourselves. Lyra squeezed his hand. And you, John, you're the proof. The first natural hybrid. A bridge not just between worlds, but between all possible worlds. The chamber filled with cascading light as Uncle Robert's consciousness finally pulled itself back together, drawing strength from the dimensional resonance. His form solidified, no longer a hologram but not quite physical, something in between, like John himself. There's one more choice to make, Uncle Robert said, his voice clear and real for the first time since his death. The dimensional passages can be sealed forever, cutting off all contact between realities. Or we can keep them open, John said, understanding. Controlled, stable, but open, allowing both humanity and the Lemurians to learn, to grow, to change, together. The song reached a crescendo, power flowing through all of them. Above, the singularity had transformed into a shining nexus of dimensional passages. The choice hung in the balance. And in every reality, across every dimension, they held their breath, waiting to see what John would choose. The choice. The dimensional nexus hung above them like a shimmering web of possibilities, each strand connecting to a different reality. John stood at the center of it all, his hybrid DNA resonating with both the ship's crystal core and the transformed singularity. Through each dimensional passage, he could see versions of Earth where history had taken different paths, some beautiful, some terrifying, all possible. Whatever you decide, Lyra said softly, her hand still linked with his. I trust you. Uncle Robert's newly reformed consciousness moved closer, his form shifting between physical and energy. The choice must be yours, John. But remember, every reality, every possibility, will be affected by what you do next. Through the passages, John watched the waiting Lemurian fleet. In some realities, they were already landing, being welcomed by humanity. In others, Fear and misunderstanding led to conflict, and in a few precious timelines, something extraordinary was happening. Humans and Lemurians were working together, reaching for the stars side by side. "I want to show you all something," John said. He closed his eyes, concentrating on the harmonic resonance flowing through their linked circle. The dimensional passages shifted, and everyone saw what he saw. A young boy visiting his uncle's mansion, drinking orange juice laced with carefully prepared genetic modulators. But there was more to the scene. His mother watching from the doorway, her eyes knowing and sad. His father in the background, reviewing Uncle Robert's research notes. They had known, and they had chosen to let it continue. Your parents understood the risks. Uncle Robert's energy form flickered with emotion. They died protecting not just you, but the whole project. They knew humanity needed this chance. The scene changed, showing the night John's grandfather first met the Lemurians. The singing light that descended from the stars hadn't crashed. It had landed deliberately, choosing the Roberts family as humanity's first contact. "A century of preparation," Starweaver said, her voice filled with awe. "My people watched, waited, guided. We knew humanity had potential, but you needed to discover it yourselves." Agent Parker's grip tightened in the circle. "All these years, we thought we were protecting Earth. We never realized." "You were," John interrupted, "just not the way you thought. Your actions, even the misguided ones, proved something crucial, that humanity would fight to protect its own destiny." The dimensional passages rippled again, showing new possibilities. John could see potential futures branching out before them. Hybrid children playing in parks, their skin shifting colors with their emotions. Lemurian technology merging seamlessly with human innovation. Universities where scientists from both worlds studied the mysteries of dimensional energy together. But he could also see the challenges: fear, prejudice, the difficult work of bringing two civilizations together. It wouldn't be easy. Nothing worth doing ever was. The ship's crystal core pulsed, reminding John of the choice before him. He could feel the power to seal the dimensional passages forever, returning everything to normal. But normal had never been what either humanity or the Lemurians truly wanted. "The multiverse doesn't just show us what could be," John said, his voice carrying the harmonic frequencies of both his human and Lemurian heritage. "It shows us who we are. Every choice, every possibility. They're all part of us." He raised his free hand to the nexus above. The dimensional passages began to shift and stabilize, but not close. Instead, they transformed into something new, regulated gateways, each one anchored by the combined resonance of human determination and Lemurian energy. "We keep them open," John declared, "not just between our worlds, but between all possible worlds. Controlled, protected, but accessible. Because the only way forward is together." The chamber filled with light as the decision rippled across realities. The waiting Lemurian fleet began to move, not just in one dimension, but in all of them, on every Earth, in every timeline. First contact was happening again, but this time with full understanding and purpose. Uncle Robert's energy form solidified further, becoming almost entirely physical. The resonance is stabilizing across all dimensions. The hybridization program, it worked better than we ever imagined. Starweaver stepped forward, still linked in the circle but radiating pride. "My people are landing now. In every reality where humanity is ready, we're making official contact. But this time, we have you, all of you, to help bridge the gap." The ship's systems hummed with power as it interfaced with the dimensional nexus, becoming a permanent anchor point for the new network of controlled passages. Through them, John could see other versions of himself and Lyra, other hybrids, other bridges between worlds. They were no longer alone. Agent Parker and his team lowered their weapons completely, finally understanding their new role. "We'll need to create a new organization," Parker said. "Not to contain or control, but to protect and facilitate. Both our peoples will need guidance through this transition. And they'll have it, John said. He turned to Lyra, seeing her in all dimensions at once. Friend, protector, partner, and now something more. We'll help them, all of us together. The dimensional harmonics reached a new frequency, a perfect blend of human and Lemurian tones. The mansion above began to transform, its space-bending properties expanding. In every reality, it was becoming something new. An embassy between worlds, a school for hybrids, a place where possibilities could be explored safely. Uncle Robert's form finally stabilized, now as solid as any of them. Your parents would be proud, he said softly. They always knew you were meant for something extraordinary. We all are, John replied. He looked around at their circle, human, Lemurian, and hybrid, all connected by choice and purpose. That's what the multiverse has been trying to show us. Every possibility exists because we have the courage to imagine it. Above them, the first Lemurian ships were landing on the mansion's expanding grounds. Through the dimensional passages, they could see the same scene playing out across countless realities. First contact was happening again and again, each time slightly different, each time carrying the hope of both civilizations. A harmonic resonance settled into a steady, peaceful hum. The dimensional nexus became a permanent part of reality, not a tear or breach, but a carefully maintained bridge between all possible worlds. Humanity's next great adventure was beginning. And at the center of it all stood John and Lyra, their hands still linked, their hybrid energy helping to maintain the delicate balance between dimensions. They were no longer just unexpected roommates or even just allies. They were proof that the space between worlds, between possibilities, was where the most beautiful futures could be born. Ready for what comes next? Lyra asked, her silver eyes shining. John smiled, feeling the infinite potential of all realities flowing through him. With you? Always. The mansion's walls shifted around them, creating new spaces for the future they would build together. Outside, the sun was rising, not just on one Earth, but on all of them. It was the dawn of a new age, across every dimension.